Okay, so one of the first things we need to do is remove the wheel. 19 millimeter, remove your lug nuts. Remove your wheel. Now that the wheel's off, let's remove our axle nut using a 32 millimeter socket. Push in on your axle, make sure it can move. If for some reason your axle doesn't push in and out, just use a punch and a hammer, go right in the center, bonk, bonk, bonk. Okay, so we're at our outer tie rod end now. We're gonna remove the locking clip or cotter pin. If you have more of these, you don't have to worry about destroying them. Remove the nut. Put that back on, just a couple threads. Now we're gonna bonk right here on the knuckle. You wanna be careful for your boot and of course the threads of your tie rod. There we go. So next we're gonna remove our 10 millimeter headed bolt that holds this bracket for the ABS wire. We need as much slack as possible. Let's start one of our lug nuts on here, just to hold this rotor from moving around. Okay, so next we're gonna take off our caliper bracket bolts. They're 21 millimeter. Here we go. I'm gonna take that and put it back in just a couple threads and remove the other one. Carefully remove your caliper with bracket. And now you wanna make sure you hang this from something. You do not wanna hang it from the brake hose. Let's get this lug nut back off of here. Remove the rotor. So now it's time to remove the bolts that hold the knuckle to the strut. I'm gonna hold this side with a 21 millimeter and remove the nut side with a 21 as well. The ends of these have splines and they get caught inside there. They do their job usually. So just give them a couple bonks. There's the splined area I was talking about. We'll remove both of these, set them aside. So we'll just pull this down and pull the axle through. Now we have a clear view of our ball joint nut. We're going to remove this ball joint nut using your 18 millimeter and extension. Here we go. There it is, nice and warm. Spray the area with some penetrant. Let's get this back up in here. One of our bolts. Just slide right through. Beautiful. So let's just make sure our axle's out of the way, and we're going to continue on with a pickle fork and a hammer. Beautiful. Now this should want to separate. Remove that bolt. So to get the control arm out, you're going to notice that you have this sway bar in the way. So what you need to do is relieve this nut right here and take off the sway bar link. Of course, that's not going to make the whole bar go up and down. So what we also need to do is go over on the other side of the vehicle, remove the wheel, and remove that nut as well. At that point, we'll be able to move the sway bar up and down, and we'll be able to get the control arm out. Use some locking pliers. Just try to grab onto the backside there, being careful not to damage the boot. Now we'll go over the other side of the vehicle and do the same thing. Get this one come out. Here we go. At this point, we can move this. Perfect. This is going to give us a little bit of clearance. We can continue. So now we're going to remove this bolt right here with our 21 millimeter swivel. If you want to, you can remove this little shield right there. It's up to you. Get on there. Just going to leave that right where it is for now, and we're going to move along to this one. So if you look up top here, you're going to see a 24 millimeter nut. Grab that with our wrench. Down here, 21. Here we go. Just going to heat up this nut a little bit. See if that worked. Gonna put a little bit of penetrant up in there. Wow. dude. Let's get our new control arm up in there. Start with the back, or the hockey puck bushing. Just going to start that in. We're not going to tighten it yet. Okay, so I cleaned up the threads on our bolt. You can tell where the nut's supposed to ride. Down here is approximately where the bushing is, so you don't have to worry about the threads so much there. This whole area right here, I'm going to give it a little coating of Never Sees. Why not? It's going to help the next person that has to do this control arm down the line. Slide this up and through there. Just put a little bit of thread locker on. Let's hold that top nut. Snug up this lower one. Let's torque this to 114 foot-pounds. We're going to torque this also to 114 foot-pounds. Grab your sway bar link. Torque this to 65 foot-pounds. We'll do the same to the other side. Slide the axle through the bearing and then up onto the ball joint. Get our ball joint nut on there. Bottom it out. Let's torque this to 20 foot-pounds. Put the axle through the bearing. Put on those nuts. Let's torque these to 65 foot-pounds. At this point, you want to make sure that the bearing and the rotor are both nice and clean where they're going to mate. Put a little bit of Never Sees. So let's get our rotor up on here. Give it a little spin. Make sure you don't hear it hitting up against the backing plate. Take one of your lug nuts. Start it on there so it holds the rotor tight. We're going to take our caliper down. Bottom these out. Let's torque these to 125 foot-pounds. Get our outer tie rod end back up in here. Snug it up. We're going to torque this to 55 foot-pounds. Come on. Okay, that's torqued. You just want to take a peek. Make sure that the slotted nut is lined up with the hole in the tie rod. If it's not, you need to continue tightening till it is. Make sure you put in that cotter pin. That's going to make sure that the nut stays locked and it can definitely not come off. Let's reconnect our ABS wire. Let's get this bracket on here. Bolt in. Snug it up. That's nice and tight. We'll get our wire back on here. Let's get this reconnected. Give it a tug, make sure it's nice and tight, and press in that lock. Put this back in here. Beautiful. We've got our axle nut, a little bit of thread locker if you'd like. We're just going to snug this up until it bottoms out, and then we're going to stop so we can torque it to manufacturer's specifications. So now I'm going to use a nice long pry bar. I'm just going to go between the studs just like this. That's going to hold this from spinning while I try to torque this. Torque it to 118 foot-pounds. Put the wheel up on. So let's snug up the lug nuts. Let's torque our lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay, let's do the same to the other side of the vehicle.